Chris was always a curious and adventurous kid. He loved exploring the world around him, and he wasn't afraid to take risks. He lived in a small town with his parents and younger sister, and he spent most of his free time playing in the nearby woods and fields. Chris was always fascinated by the jungle on the outskirts of his town. He had been there with his parents a few times, but he had never explored it on his own. One day, Chris decided to go on a solo adventure into the jungle. His mother warned him to be careful and to stay close to home, but Chris was too excited to listen. He packed a backpack with some snacks and water, and set off into the jungle, eager to discover new places and things. As he walked deeper into the jungle, Chris felt a sense of excitement and adventure. He saw exotic birds and animals, and he felt like he was in a completely different world. He walked for what seemed like hours, taking in all the sights and sounds around him. But as the sun started to set, Chris realized that he had lost his sense of direction. He looked around, but everything looked the same to him. He tried to retrace his steps, but he only ended up getting himself more lost. The jungle was vast and dense, and Chris felt like he was in a maze. Suddenly, he heard a growl. He turned around to see a scary-looking wolf staring at him. Chris froze in fear, not sure what to do. He remembered his mother's advice to stay calm and slowly back away, but the wolf was blocking his path. Chris realized that he needed to find a way to escape. He started to run in the opposite direction, hoping to outrun the wolf. He ran as fast as he could, but the wolf was fast too. Chris thought he was never going to make it out alive. But as he ran, he stumbled upon a treehouse. It was old and rickety, but it was the only safe place he could find. Chris climbed up into the treehouse and closed the door behind him. He was safe for the moment, but he knew he couldn't stay there forever. He needed to find a way out of the jungle and back home. As he sat in the treehouse, Chris thought about his mother's advice. She had told him to make a fire using primitive tools, such as sticks and leaves, and the smoke would signal for help. Chris looked around and found some dry leaves and sticks. He used his knife to create a spark, and soon he had a small fire going. The smoke from the fire rose high into the sky, and Chris waited anxiously for help to arrive. He was scared and alone, but he knew he had to be brave. After what felt like an eternity, he heard the sound of a helicopter in the distance. The police had found him. Chris was overjoyed to see the rescue team, and he quickly climbed down from the treehouse. The team took him back to his town, where his parents were waiting anxiously for him. They hugged him tightly and were so relieved to see him safe and sound. Chris learned a valuable lesson that day. He realized that he should have listened to his mother's advice and been more careful. He promised to always stay close to home and never wander off on his own again. And he knew that if he ever found himself lost again, he would remember his mother's advice and make a fire to signal for help. When he got home, Chris hugged his mother and thanked her for her advice. He realized that his mother always had his best interests at heart, and that he should trust her more. From that day on, Chris became more responsible and careful. He still loved exploring the world around him, but he did so with a newfound sense of caution and respect. As he grew older, Chris became an advocate for wilderness safety. He spoke to school groups and community organizations about the importance of being prepared and staying safe in the outdoors. He even volunteered for the local search and rescue team, helping to find lost hikers and campers in the wilderness. Looking back on his adventure in the jungle, Chris realized that it had been a turning point in his life. It taught him valuable lessons about responsibility, courage, and the power of nature. And it had given him a sense of purpose and direction that would stay with him for the rest of his life. Years later, Chris returned to the jungle where he had once been lost. This time, he was leading a group of young hikers, teaching them about wilderness safety and the importance of being prepared. As they walked through the jungle, Chris felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. He had come a long way since that day when he had been lost and scared in the jungle. And he knew that he had his mother to thank for it all.